Wondered how to get this great looking and smooth, dazzling footage out of your drone to beef up your videos and films? Let's get to this. We all know that sometimes drones can bring more stress than joy, but how to avoid it? Drones became very popular and relatively inexpensive, depending on your needs, your features you want, and the quality you expect. There is a question, how to make these videos looking better? Probably you're asking yourself a question, why my videos are looking just like regular videos? I want them to be looking better, good, stunning, with a lot of depth and smooth, outstanding. This is the question. Drones are getting better and they can produce amazing quality, but what is the secret to produce these really good cinematic looking shots? How to squeeze this quality out of your drone to get this good results every time you plan to shoot something and you feel satisfaction that you made it and you get what you want? There is one quick answer, but I would like to break it down. There is no magic or secret. There are simply a couple of rules you have to follow and put them in your workflow, and you will see that your footage is gonna look very different and you're gonna like it, and simply you will get what you want. I address this video to all of you who already own the drone and is wondering how to get better at it. I've divided this guide in two sections. One is regarding the manual skills you have to practice, and the other one is regarding the settings you have to set in your drone. I've built my own checklist that I proceed through every time when I want to fly, and I do that checks to make sure that everything is working. You have to be aware that your drone, this is aircraft, and you're controlling something what is hovering in the air. It can fly every direction, it can do whatever you want, but you have to be aware that you must have a control over it. And this is simply what you can get with time. You need to spend time. This is like the pro tip number one. Just practice and practice and practice because it makes you master. Maybe it sounds obvious, but I have to spend a lot of hours in the air to make it better, to feel the joysticks, to feel that it's working, it's doing what I want, to tweaking the settings and getting to know what I really want. On my list, the first thing that I check are the batteries. Are they charged? You have to value your time in the air because your drone relies on the power. You have to be aware how much battery you have left. Keep an eye on your batteries. They have self-discharge function. What it means? When you're not using your batteries for some longer period of time, they can quickly run out of juice to the half of capacity or sometimes even go flat. You can be really surprised when you're about to fly. Updates. Everyone hates updates. I'm so disappointed every time I'm about to fly and I see my drone updating. It takes around 20 minutes. I can't do anything in this time and never interrupt it because you can damage your drone. I clean my sensors because sensors in your drone are your lifesaver sometimes, and I always fly with obstacle avoidance, except some scenarios when I am absolutely certain about the conditions. I'm really sure that there is no danger. And the filters. Whenever you fly in a bright day, you want to consider putting on the anti-filters on your lens because you can maintain the settings like shutter speed and aperture untouched, so you don't have to tweak them to get the image darker. In my case, to get the proper blur was the biggest issue. I was really amazed when my solution arrived and how much difference I could see.
Filters I'm using, this is a set from Prelude. You just have to untwist the original lens. They have small like claws underneath and they just pop in and it's twisted back.
The installation of the filters is super easy. I juggle between the ND16 and ND32 in very bright days.
You can find on this filter little indicator as well as on the red ring, and this is for adjusting how the polarization is gonna work. Usually what I do before I take off, aim it for example on my car because the car body is reflective or the car glass, and I try to twist it back and forth to find the spot, you know, where it's like cutting off the highlights, where it's cutting off these reflections.
Reduction of the glare from the surfaces is pretty great. I love it. I'm pretty happy with my set of ND8, 16, 32 and 64. They are really great and they are one of my favorite tools to make it look cinematic. ND filters are like sunglasses, and maintaining your settings is crucial to get this cinematic look.
One day we up, one day we down, one day we up, one day we down.
Flying in the windy conditions may be really difficult. I never recommend to ignore your warnings on your drone. Whenever there's high wind velocity, keeping in mind that flying away may be easy, but you may be really surprised. Wind direction may change and it can drag your drone away from your route and it can make it very difficult for you to come back. Sometimes it may be so hard to come back that you may lose it. Of course, you have to respect no-fly zones. They were made for a reason. You don't want to have any interaction with the law, and you don't want the police to catch you, and of course you don't want to do anything against FAA regulation. You can obtain license on the website and address is here. Fly with caution when you enter altitude limit zones. What are they? These are specific zones where you can't fly above some limit, and probably your drone is gonna tell you that. But funny thing happens when you are on the border of these zones. I remember the day when I was flying around the city and I ascended somewhere close to the limit. It was about the time to come back. Of course, my battery was dying, so I wanted to come back as quick as possible, and what I encountered was an invisible wall. Imagine the stress that I had and the time that was running.
Battery level is low. The aircraft will go to the home point in 10 seconds.
No batteries, man.
was 100% sure I'm gonna lose my drone. But I figured it out, and now I know, and I share that with you. Whenever you hit this invisible wall when you are in the air, try to descend to the point when it lets you go. This way you can save your drone and a lot of stress. Check your surrounding. Imagine you are in the nature, and the nature is home for many birds. You can have a lot of problems, especially during the nesting time. You are entering their home, so try to respect that. Right after you take off, try to hover for a little bit and check if you're not dragging too much attention of the birds around. Believe me, they don't understand what the drone is, and they're gonna defend. They can attack it and pull it down. And regarding getting better in flying drone, take a small tasks. Don't try to exaggerate with the moves. Don't try to make any complicated things right away after takeoff. Each time you have to get comfortable. You got some muscle memory, of course, if you're flying a lot. But each time before I fly, I try to check how it reacts. And if I'm 100% sure that I know what I'm doing and I have absolutely full control over my joystick and my drone. What kind of moves are working and what kind of moves are cool? I think all of them are good if you keep them simple and smooth.
Probably all of you are wondering what are the best shots to practice flying the drone, and in my opinion all of them are cool, and whatever you're doing with the drone is cool anyway, right? But basic stuff works the best. The most cinematic or the simplest. Don't try to do anything jerky because it will never look good. You have to be smooth, you have to control your drone, you have to know the tempo of movement for your scene, and this is basically the only factor. All of the rest is simply your imagination. Whatever works for you is gonna be looking good in between other shots you have.
Sometimes simple ascending and descending to show the surrounding is just enough. You have to consider what scenario you're trying to fit your drone footage in and how it's gonna look in the montage.
My favorite shots are simple push-ins, pull-out, circling around objects, and combination of these movements. All kind and all sort of dolly shots. Dolly shots are cool.
You can make smooth shots that were available back in the days only with a jib or some dollies setting up the rails. It was time consumption. You can get it right away. Just master slow movements and you'll see that with the time you're getting better and better. Simple things that I like are some following shots, some simple panning and parallaxes. I love parallaxes because it gives this dimension, this depth to your footage.
Your drone is a camera, but it can fly. Make a use of that and think of what crazy moves you would do with regular camera to film something. Usually when you film, you try to keep everything as smooth as possible, and do the same with your drone, and you will see that's the key to the success with the drone shots, and they will look more cinematic when you will have more control about it and you're gonna be more calm.
This is a real pro tip. It's really good to have a subject in your videos. Just the landscapes are beautiful, but there's no such an effect if you're having someone who is moving, your car is riding.
It's something what you're focusing on. Is it a car, or is it a person, or is it just the object you're telling the story about? And yeah, we're telling the stories. Imagine the movie, it's storytelling. It's story about something, it has to be about something. Landscapes look good, but if you have the subject in your video, it's even better. Put it in consideration that the distance from your object is also very important, and you can create a lot of depth by just changing the distance and showing how small the thing is in comparison to all the background.
For really good looking cinematic shots, you want to keep the 3 planes.
Using a regular camera, you can create it by placing your subject in between the background and the foreground. If you'll manage to make the background and the foreground blurry, you'll get really cinematic shot. I think this is creating this point of reference where your subject is and how it's moving in the environment. It's really important. It's very hard to obtain it with a drone. I think the two plane, like the subject and the background, is just enough. With 2.8 lens Hasselblad in Mavic 2 Pro, you can get really nice effects, but it's still small sensor. It's gonna be hard for you. In order to obtain this depth in your background, you would have to approach your subject as close as you can, but you have to be really experienced because the blades of the propellers are very sharp when in move.
Avoid the speed. I don't like speeding with the drones. There are some enthusiasts of racing. I don't like it personally. Sometimes it works, but you have to have the open field and nothing around you. When you fly with the speed, what I do, I fly low to the ground, but sometimes obstacle avoidance is interrupting it and it's really annoying. But I don't suggest to turn it off.
I agree to bear full responsibility for my flight in this zone. Actually, I have to, I don't have any other option. Yes, and we're taking off.
The home point has been updated. Please check it on the map.
Regarding the speed, in your drone, you have the option to choose from the tripod mode, positioning mode, and sports mode. Let's try the sports mode. I don't like flying with big speed when I'm filming, but sometimes speed is like fun. Before you fly, you have to make sure that you know the surroundings, so maybe explore it around a little bit and make sure that you're not gonna hit anything, because the biggest drawback of sports mode is that it's turning off the obstacle avoidance and you can hit everything. If it's gonna encounter the tree, the post, the light, whatever, building, it's gonna crush right away. In sports mode, braking is hard because it needs more distance. Even turning around is super difficult.
Flying in sports mode may bring you a lot of joy, but as well, it may be a little bit dangerous. I would highly recommend to practice a lot before you start flying in this mode. I suggest to use this mode only in very well planned scenarios, because the reactions to your joysticks are much sharper and you need a lot of focus to fly in this mode. And super pro tip! Don't produce long clips because you're gonna die. In editing, you have to still sit to your computer and choose the best parts. With no plan, you're gonna waste a lot of memory and your time later in editing. Careful when you press record. Do that right before the shot is starting and divide it in short clips. Don't create super long clips because searching for them, it may be hell. If you have like low performance computer, it can really hard to edit. Second thing that is also very important, as well as your skills, are the settings in your drone. These are like the things that you have to master and to get familiar with, so you know how to tweak them and how they are working. But I think these are pretty easy. You have to spend some time with it and simply find out what these settings are responsible for. The most important thing is keep your shutter speed double of whatever your frame rate is. This is very important. This way you create the blur, the magic of the cinema. I record in 24 frames per second right now, so my shutter speed is 50. You see how blurry is each frame when I wave my hand? Look at this. My shutter speed is 200 right now. Look, it looks jerky. You don't want your footage to look jerky. Right, that's why the most important settings that I take care about the most when I start my drone are exposure settings. You simply access them by hitting the sliders button on the right side. You can adjust your aperture, shutter speed, and ISO, which are making so-called exposure triangle. They work together in close relationships, so if you change one variable At least one of others must also change to maintain the correct exposure. There's one rule over here, and it's like holy rule of the rules, and it's to set your shutter speed double of whatever your frame rate recording is. Of course, you want to make all of the changes in manual mode when your exposure remains fixed, and this is the only way to make it possible to color grade it later. So if you remember that and combine it with a proper anti-filter on your lens, you can get pretty decent looking cinematic blur. In the second tab of the menu you can find more settings such as frame rate. And due to limitations of Mavic 2 Pro, in order to record high frame rate video you have to lower the resolution, and when you do so you unlock a couple more frame rates, and the one that you're interested in the most is gonna be probably 60 frames per second, but be mindful of the fact that you compromise it over the resolution. If you're looking to change your white balance, don't forget it's located in the second tab of your menu, and here you can find classic presets like sunny, cloudy, incandescent and fluorescent, as well as a custom. There's a pretty useful trick. If you want to find out the preset's value, simply tap the preset and then come back to custom. This way it's gonna show you its temperature. And of course, if you're not sure what temperature to choose, set it to auto and then come back to custom. Moving on, you want to go to styles and set your own custom style, because we know that the drones are creating a very image look-like pictures, so in order to make it easier to work with in post-production, you want to lower the sharpness and contrast. What you want to do is to set both to -1, and I think this is absolutely enough. And speaking about the quality, you want to unleash the full power of color which DJI drone come with, and it's possible only by selecting the H.265 codec. It unlocks you the possibility to record a 10-bit video, and once you've chosen the right codec, you can simply choose it from the color menu by selecting D-Log-M color science. Don't lose sight of the fact if you want to expose properly, you need to rely on more than just your eyeball. Turn on the histogram in the third tab of the menu. You can drag it over the screen in case it covers your image. In the same tab, if you scroll down, you can find another useful tool, which is Zebra, in this case named Overexposed. You may be a little bit confused where to find option to format your SD card. It is in the same menu, and it's good practice to always format the card before you start recording. Another set of settings you want to walk through you can access by hitting 3 dots in the upper right corner. The first thing to set is a return to home altitude. Usually you want to type some safe values so your drone don't hit any obstacle like a tree or a building. When you scroll down, you can enter advanced settings where you can set behavior of your joystick. First in the row are exponential settings of how aggressive or smooth your joysticks are reacting to the finger moves. In short, the more bended the exponential curves are, the smoother moves of your joystick. But you don't want to exaggerate with the values. Sometimes the values between 10 and 30 are sufficiently fine. Try it out to feel better how it reacts to gently touches and when you put the pedal to the metal. The left graph is responsible for ascending and descending, middle one for turning right and left, and the right one for flying forward and backwards. If you're not sure which values are working for you, try to start from middle ground, typing values between 10 and 20. The lower the value, the more input is needed on your sticks, and it means it's less sensitive to your moves, what can help you reduce any nervous movements. Adjust the sensitivity to your liking. To make it more convenient, you have a dedicated menu where you can adjust how sensitive your drone is to your inputs. You can tweak your altitude, brake, even yaw movement limit. If you want your moves to be really gentle and graceful, you want to lower these values, so it's rather easing into the move rather than kicking out. The values represent percentage of the maximum output, so if you'll set it to 80 and go with your joystick all the way, it means you will get only 80% of the maximum output. Clarify, attitude is responsible for how aggressively the controls will react to the movement of your stick. Brake for smoothing out the stopping, and yaw for moving sideways. Usually for the most cinematic results you want to keep these values low, but in some scenarios you want to ramp up, for example brake, to prevent running into the things and stop right away. The last set of numbers to set are gains, and these numbers are responsible for how stable your drone is. You can notice it when it's windy and how your drone is fighting back the force of the wind to make it back in position. And of course you can adjust these settings to make your drone more or less responsive. In general, you have to remember that you are the camera operator and you make the decisions what the shots are gonna be like. That's why it's good to know these settings and to master them, so when it comes to record something and you have the plan, you know how to fix the problems and how to look for the solutions and specifically know where to look for the solutions. This menu is not complicated and you can learn it by yourself, but all you have to do is to spend some time with it and play. The better you're prepared, the better shots you will produce, and you have to awake the awareness that not only that what you see on the screen is what matters, you have to know what's behind it and how it's done. Remember, this is not only the aircraft you're flying, it's a camera, and you are the director.
If you want to become a better drone pilot, you have to persistently practice. If you want to make a better shots, you have to proceed through the list that I made in this video for you, and you'll see with the time and persistency you will get to the point where it's become normal routine for you to put the MDs on when it's really bright outside. Remember about the batteries and checking the conditions you're flying around. I know if you're watching this video, you have to be a drone pilot and you're interested in it. So I think, I made something for you and you'll remember my tips and you'll make use of them. It's not very difficult, you just have to love it. I love flying drones and I believe you're gonna love it even more when you will see the better results coming of your footage, and you'll see that it can be like a movie. Thank you everyone for watching this video. If you want to support me and you want to see more videos like that, subscribe to my channel and hit like under this video, leave a comment, ask me a question. I'm really open and don't waste time. You're the pilot. Let's go and fly. Up. No worries. I'm recording a video for my YouTube channel. Yeah. Yeah. When you film something, you try to keep it as smooth as possible. As smooth as the sound of the plane over my head. Beautiful. Polish Airlines, LOT, locked. Another plane is interrupting, another plane is flying over my head. It's so noisy. I don't know if the microphone is picking it up, but it's annoying. No problem. It's a pretty nice spot, I like it.